This is Enrich Your Life, a podcast about financial health, all things investing, life planning, and smart decisions with Richard Leimgruber.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Enrich Your Life, a podcast where we talk about everyday financial strategies to help you achieve your goals in the most efficient manners. Joining me today is Stephanie Bellofatto, Director of Commercial and Residential Accounts, working with ServPro of Putnam County and Northwest Southeast Duchess County. ServPro works to help high net worth homeowners and business owners plan and mitigate for the unexpected, whether it be a fire, water, mold, biohazards, pathogens, crime scenes, puffbacks, nicotine cleans, or even post-construction cleanup. ServPro can also help make it like it never even happened. They also provide a complimentary emergency ready profile or ERP program that establishes information that you will need when a potential disaster occurs. And we'll be discussing this in more detail in just a few minutes. And without further ado, please help me welcome our guest, Stephanie Bellofatto.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I love giving our listeners the opportunity to tell a little bit about who they are and how they got into the business and how they got to where they are today.
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm a mom.
Okay.
And a grandma, right? Actually, better known as Mima, not grandma.
Okay.
I have two boys, two adult children, and two grandsons. One of my sons is a Navy veteran. So
thank you for his service.
Yeah. It was his pleasure, right? My stress, his pleasure. Why and where I started doing what I do? Well, I am fortunate enough. My best friend is the owner of my franchises. So who better to work alongside than your best friend? We also own a construction company as well. The construction business has been around for 30 plus years. Wow. It's nice to be able to help people, most especially in a time of need, in a crisis.
It's not so much all about planning. Sometimes it's planning, but sometimes it's crisis management, as I like to say.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. It's important to prepare, if you can, ahead of time, but also have the proper support when you need it.
And so as a financial advisor, I have the important role of helping clients not only save money on taxes, help them invest their money within their risk tolerance, but I also have the job of really helping them mitigate risks that might be in plain sight that they don't see, right?
Absolutely.
And not only that, but I also have to help them when tragedy strikes.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of times I say it's crisis management. That's going to lead us into our discussion today. Oftentimes I get calls from clients and, you know, they're looking for me just to have a clear head and say, okay, what are the next steps that I need to take now that this has happened? And, you know, obviously it's all about organizing when something does happen. And that's where this conversation is going to lead with what we're going to talk about today. So it's all about being prepared, right? And why that matters. So we'll explore a complimentary service that your company offers, ServPro, that could save a lot of time and a lot of stress during those specific times of panic and confusion and money. And, you know, by being prepared with the important information that you're going to need to provide a whole host of other professionals that you're looking to help you get back to where you were before this tragedy or situation. Being prepared often feels optional for most people, right? Until that disaster occurs. So my initial conversation or initial question is all about, why do you think that is? Why do you think high net worth homeowners and small business owners avoid planning? And how do you think you can overcome that mindset?
Everybody's running. Everybody has so much on their plate to do. The important thing to understand is if you prepare ahead of time, things are going to get done more efficiently, more effectively, and lead you to saving money in the long run. It's about having those kinds of conversations with people and saying to them, hey, look, for a little time now, it'll save you so much time later. Right. But you have to show them the way, right? So what I typically try and do is get information from them ahead of time, give them a reasonable time frame.
Set expectations.
Right, to get me that information so that I only have to take up a little of their time.
You'd be the one actually helping somebody fill out this type of
Yes, I would
report.
be doing that.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a blank piece of paper you send to somebody.
Oh, no,
and they
no.
fill it out and
No.
just keep it. Okay.
Because there's so much more to it than just that. This is really to protect them and to help them.
We actually, as registered financial advisors, are required to have a second place in case of an emergency. We have it written down. We have policies and procedures that are required.
I think more and more, Rich, since the pandemic that has happened, right? Because when the pandemic happened, so many businesses were like, oh, we have to shut down, but there's opportunity to work remotely. So I think now it's a little bit easier to have those conversations with people, to express the importance of it after we've all experienced what happened during the pandemic.
So when you think about high net worth homeowners specifically, what unique risks or blind spots do they face compared to the average family?
So you're talking typically multi-million-dollar homes. You're talking much more expensive furniture, furnishings, artwork, jewelry. There's a plethora of things that they may have a very high value versus, the average homeowner.
Right.
And none of them are less important. It's all important. It's all relative.
Just there's a lot more money at stake.
There absolutely is more money at stake. Making sure that you're properly covered, that you're going over your policy. We talk about time, and oftentimes they're high net worth because they're busting it. They're out there hustling and busting it, right? Mm-hmm. So they might be limited in time, but taking the time to ensure that what you're covered for, you're properly protected is so super important.
Sure, absolutely. And I think we had a P&C person we both know on this podcast prior to, and one of the things that he had recommended was going around and taking pictures and videos of all of your belongings, because if there was a fire and your house burnt down, there's no way that you're going to be able to remember all of the things that you had that are going to get replaced. So if you could walk into any home today and check out the property, what's one thing that you would consider as the biggest oversight that you would typically find?
What I typically find when I speak to a homeowner, and a lot of times it's like twofold, right? I'm speaking to a business owner, and they also have a home, right? So when I'm speaking to them in their business and talking about this plan that we're going to discuss further, I'm asking them if they know where the shutoffs are in their home, meaning the main water shutoff.
Right.
Or the gas shutoff.
Is it accessible?
Right. And they'll say to me, well, yeah, I know where it is. And I'm like, okay. So if it's you, for instance, Rich, right, I would be saying to you, like, okay, so you know where it is. Does your wife know where it is?
Right.
Do your children of a certain age, of course, older children, right? I would never recommend to tell younger children
where the gas shutoff is.
Where the gas and water shutoff is, because God only knows what might happen there.
Sure.
But it's important to you not be the only person that knows, right? It's important because you can be mitigating how much loss you have should a pipe burst or should a gas line be leaking, right? And you can be protecting yourself and those around you.
I think utility shutoffs is very important.
Very important.
So what we were leading to is the Emergency Ready Profile, or ERP program. Can you give us a little information on what it is and how it works?
Typically what I will do to save time for high net worth, almost for anyone, right? I would provide them the list of things that I would need from them. And those things would be such as, who's your electric company, right? What are your account numbers? Who's your phone service provider? And those numbers. Who's your oil if you burn oil to heat your home or gas to heat your home? Who's the company that you use? All of those things I put into in a program that we have, and then I provide you an app for your phone.
That's great.
So I'm tagging your water shutoff for you, because some people will tell me, I don't even know where the water shutoff is. So after I've compiled all the information, and I ask other questions too, right? For instance, if it's a business and they had a loss, and you needed our services. Where would you like us to park our vehicles to have the least amount of disruption to your business?
Okay.
What door would you like us to use? Do you have elevator access? Do you have a floor plan that you can share with me that I can include in that? And then I go around and, like I said, I tag and I mark the shutoffs. I take photos of where they are and give direction as to where they're located in the building. First floor, second floor, basement, utility room, whatever that may be. And from, business or home, it's likely different, right?
Yeah.
And I put that into our program. And I'm also taking photos of, listen, the first thing the insurance company wants to know, should you suffer a loss, what did it look like before the loss happened, right? Because oftentimes you're insured for like, is what we call it. So if you have granite or marble or quartz countertops and they need to be replaced, they're going to be replaced like for like, but they still want to see, they want proof that that's what you had prior to the loss. Cabinetry, a lot of people have custom cabinetry. That's really expensive to replace.
Would you also include photos of like a receipt of the work so that you could show how much you paid for it?
I can include anything anybody wants. I often will tell business owners, I'll put all your vendors on there if you want. If it's going to be helpful for you.
So insurance is obviously, we talked about insurance and it's very critical to know who your insurance carrier is, what your limits are, especially after a catastrophe. And many people don't even know what their policy details are. How does the ERP program bridge the gap between paperwork and taking action when something happens?
With all of the information, it does expedite the process, right? We already know going in. If someone calls me and says to me, Stephanie, we had a water loss downstairs, I already know what the square footage of it is, how much of it was affected. Right? Then I already know I can set up my team for success by saying, okay, we need so many air movers, we need the extraction machine, we need so many dehumidifiers in order to get that place dried up as quickly and as effectively and efficiently as possible.
And so there's also an emotional and psychological side to any of these catastrophes, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Disasters don't just destroy property, but they also disrupt our lives.
Absolutely. In multiple ways, I think that emotionally, it's really, really stressful. So having this plan in place takes a lot of that stress out because I'm already managing the expectation, right? I've already gone through it with them. I've already expressed what the process is, so they kind of already know that. They do know it. But I say kind of because we have to keep repeating that, because when people are in high stress situations, they don't always remember, right? So we have to say, okay, these are the steps we take. We place equipment first. We wait to hear from your adjuster before we move forward because we want to make sure that this is a covered claim. And if it's not, how are we going to handle it?
Okay.
We do work with all insurance companies.
Right.
So if it's a covered claim, we're waiting. And oftentimes we wait a long time for payment from the insurance company. It's a process. And as long as you understand the process and you get to us the paperwork that is required that we need, ultimately it's the customer's responsibility. But we want to work together with your insurance company. It's not seamless. It's just not, right? When these things happen, it is really emotional. It is really stressful. Oftentimes people are displaced for a period of time. So we often talk about, if someone was to have a fire and I say to a client, a customer, if we can save one thing, what's the most important thing to you? From person to person, the answer is going to be very different. So respecting that these are their things, this is like, they often feel like my whole life just went up in smoke.
To you, when you're going through this process, one of the things that I do when I start collecting financial inventory, I'll say, bank accounts, investments, insurance and stuff, what I'm also doing is asking questions, right? So I know we have a strong box that's fireproof.
Right.
And that's where all of our important documents go in. Do you go through that too and say, hey, where are you keeping this insurance policy? Why is it not in a fireproof box?
Sometimes people will often think like, oh, are you going to come in here and then tell me all the imperfections and then kind of no, that's not my role.
Right.
My role is to come in and protect you the best way I know possible. And like you said, ask, do you have a safe? Where are you keeping these documents?
Yeah.
Look, you should be taking an inventory of anything that's of value to you. You should be taking an inventory of it. I will inventory certain things, but I'm not going to inventory everything, right? I'm not going through your closets. That's not my role. I'm not going through your jewelry box. You need to do that. Make sure those things are insured properly. Because the structure is only going to be insured for so much. The contents are only going to be insured for so much.
Right.
So if jewelry is another
somebody
one,
might have an engagement ring that's insured,
Right.
but what about their $20,000 watch?
Absolutely.
Right?
If you're walking around with a Rolex, make sure that's part of your policy.
It's interesting because that's one of the things I think most people who are professionals, they have a really good mindset for being prepared. I always say, well, if you can have somebody else looking in from the outside, they might pick up on even more things that you don't even realize that we should have. And that's where you come along and say, hey, I'm not being nosy, but I want to make sure that you're protected and that we're going to make sure that we know where everything is.
That's
right?
the most important piece, knowing that you're properly protected. Look, I oftentimes will say to people, even if you don't live in a floodplain, but you often get water, you should really consider getting a flood policy.
Right.
Or if you have a sump pump, up the coverage as much as you can, because if you finish that space, what did it cost you to finish? So if it gets damaged, what's it going to cost to replace? And we all know everything has gone up significantly.
Yeah, there was a quote that the other podcast guest had brought on and said, you'll never hear a client call you up and say, I wish I didn't have all this coverage.
Right.
Right, when a disaster happens. But they will say, I wish I had more coverage
and that
if they didn't have
often
it.
happens. Our clients will say, I don't understand why this isn't covered. I'm not an insurance professional.
Right.
I can't give you that answer, but I can tell you that's the importance of going over those policies with your agent. Right. And I always say to people too, this is super important for people to understand. If you should have a loss, the importance of having an agent that you can reach out to that wrote your policy for you.
And not an 800 customer service number.
Correct.
Right.
Call your agent first. Your agent is going to guide you because they wrote the policy.
Right.
Because the thing is, regardless, once you call the claims department, it's a claim, even if they don't pay you on that claim. So you become a higher risk to that company. Yeah. And it could be something small that you could take care of yourself anyway. I've had customers say, well, my boiler broke down. I'm going to call my insurance company. I'm like, well, that's not your insurance company's responsibility. Like, you have a responsibility to maintain whether the structure is your business or whether it's your home, you have a responsibility to maintain it.
If your boiler were to rust out and flood your basement, then you would call your insurance company and your broker or agent would say, have you maintained it? Do you have records of the maintenance? And if you don't, there's a high likelihood that they're not going to cover that loss because you weren't maintaining it.
And I feel horrible when we've had clients that have had significant losses and they didn't have the proper coverage. Right. And we already know that most of those people don't have a cash reserve.
So you mentioned this emergency ready profile is complimentary. And I know that there's a lot of companies out there that do charge, right? So why does ServPro prioritize offering it complimentary, and how does that fit into the company's philosophy?
Look, we here at ServPro, we're always here to help. That's one of our biggest things that we tell people. We want to help those people ahead of time. They're in our community. Right. It's our give back to the people within our community. And it also, allows us to start building relationships with people and educating them on things that they might not have thought of. That's always my goal. My goal is to educate you so that you're prepared. You hear me say all the time, now as the weather gets cooler, right? My tips are going to be, hey, listen, if you burn oil to heat your home, make sure you're having it serviced annually so that it's functioning properly to avoid you from having a puffback. Right. Or, hey, if you're burning wood and you have fireplaces in your home, make sure you have the chimneys inspected and cleaned prior to the colder weather coming to avoid a chimney fire.
Yeah, and you always mention the dryers, making sure you clean out your
dryer
vents.
And not just the vent, right? People don't understand. Take apart the back of the dryer and vacuum that too.
Sure.
It's so super important. And fire, water is the most intrusive of all. But fire, people's lives are at risk. We don't have tsunamis here, so no one is going to drown when they have a water loss.
As a volunteer firefighter, past, not present, I can tell you that after putting out a fire, what do you use to put out a fire? Water. So it's not only the fire, it's the water that the firefighters had to put out.
Right.
That will, you might have had a little kitchen fire, but guess what? That water is now in your basement.
Yep.
Because it goes through the floors and into the basement. So it's not just the fire, it's everything that happened afterwards too.
And it's, when you say that, during the summertime, I call that the trifecta, right? Because you have a fire, you use water to put out the fire, and then they have to do their investigation. So it could be days before we even get access to that property. And now you have mold. So that's the trifecta.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're being proactive, that, to your point, a kitchen fire, make sure you have a fire extinguisher somewhere handy.
Yep.
Make sure you know how to handle a grease fire. Yep. Just education is the key, right? We all don't know what we don't know. And sometimes it's just a reminder. People may know, but they need a reminder.
So where can our listeners go to find out more about this ERP Ready app?
Well, they can reach out to me.
Sure.
Right? You can call me at 845-745-3167.
Okay.
And
is there a website?
There's a website, ServPro.PutnamCounty.com.
So before we leave today, is there anything else that you think is important to share with our listeners?
My goal is to protect you and your most valuable assets. And oftentimes, listen, when it comes to your business, I say this to business owners, protecting what is feeding you and your family and your future is super important.
Sure.
Don't take it lightly.
Yep.
So this is a complimentary service that I provide. And it only is costing you a little time. Yep. A little time now for a lot less time later.
I really appreciate you coming in and sharing this valuable information. And if anybody who's listening has any questions, you can always reach out to us at hello@enrichlifepodcast.com, which is our email. And if you as a listener have any other topics that you'd like to hear us talk about, please feel free to mention it. Don't forget, you can find all of our social media channels, and we are on all the major podcast platforms. So check us out, and please let us know if we can do anything else.
So much for having me, Rich.
Thanks, Stephanie. You were great. And I just one last thing I want to say thank you to LMC Media, who provides this wonderful studio to us, Vectorly, who helps us co-produce this podcast, and all of our guests. Thank you so much.